say technical, but in terms of compliance, knowing what are the rules, the regulations. So I have for this panel, Hervé Clément, the chair of ASOAC, and also Akinori, also member of the ASO. And we have online Hans-Peter Stollen, RIP NCC CEO and NRO AC chair. And we are supposed to have Noah Minat online. He's the Secretary General of TISPA, Tanzania Internet Exchange Point Association. No, Tanzania ISP Association. Do we have Noah online? No, Noah. Okay. So yes, time to cool down a little bit these things, because we are now talking acronyms: ASO, NRO, ASOAC, NROAC. So I will try to get my panelists to clarify these things, and we'll be also talking ICP-2, ICP-2 version 2, etc., etc. So I think we will love to, to explain or to clarify these things. So to do this, allow me to ask my panelists to introduce themselves, but not use the acronym. So tell us what is the ASO, what is the ASOAC. Don't say Hervé Clément ASOAC. No, we want to know what is the ASO and what is the AC. Okay, so please, Hervé, please proceed.
Okay, so I'm Hervé Clément from the ASOAC NRO. No, I am understood. I am primarily from Orange, so it's not an acronym, it's a real ISP. A lot of people know from Africa as well. That's the reason why so the situation in Africa and issues in Africa are interest of me, even if I have a lot of friends within Africa as well. And since 2018, I am part of his council, the NRO, Number Resource Organization NC, so Number Council, is the set of the people elected or appointed by the community of the executive board of all the regions. So it's the people, and yeah, sorry.
So please wait, so we have the NRO NC and we have the NRO EC. So you are part of the NRO NC. And Hans is part of the NRO EC, which is the executive council.
NRO EC, so it's a set of the CEOs of the regions. And the NRO NC fulfills the function of the ASO-AC. You can see the ASO as part of the organization of the ICANN. And so we fulfill the function of the ASO Address Council. That's the reason why you have two different words and too many acronyms, so it will be very easy to people to be lost. That's our purpose.
Thank you. So the ASO is the Address Supporting Organization, which is one of the consistency inside ICANN. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. So Akinori, can you introduce yourself?
Okay. Thank you very much. My name is Akinori Maemura. I am from Japan. I am for Number Resource Organizations, Number Council, and then my employer is the Japan Network Information Center, JPNIC. I am serving at NRO NC for from this January to join and to work on the ICP-2 and some other, of course, some other obligation which the NRO NC had. I'm quite long with this industry. I started to be involved in the global internet coordination in 2000 when I joined the APNIC Executive Council, which is the governing board of APNIC. And then I served 6 years in the ICANN board. And then I am really happy to join the Hervé Clément, our chef, with the NRNC. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Akinori. So, Hans-Peter, please, can you introduce yourself? And
yeah, so you've already seen me on stage an hour ago, Hans-Peter Hålen, and I'm the chair of the Executive Council, to not use the abbreviations of the Number Resource Organization. And as I said back then, and it's also in my slides if you want to refer to it later, we're just confusing everybody with having two names for the same thing. And that's because we're doing numbers, so I should rather introduce myself as 193.0.19.45, right? That's the IP address of the NRO website. My day job, executive council, means that I get paid. Hervé and Akinori-san, they're all volunteers, so they're working for you, for the community. While I'm together with the other executives and staff of the RIRs, we're paid to do the work to keep the registry running. So that's the big distinction here between the volunteer part and the paid staff. My background in the industry goes back to early 90s. I worked at university running UCP. I heard that was mentioned earlier on here. Also running a DNS name server back then, but then since through the times moved more into management, technology management, and today then running the whole RIPE NCC.
Okay, thank you. So yes, this panel is about looking at the RIR compliance to ICP-2, the ICANN board resolution 2024, 24th of December. I don't think many people in this room are aware that ICANN board took a resolution to approve the implementation procedure of the compliance of ICP-2. And then also looking ahead, the compliance toward the ICP-2v2. So again, we are adding more confusion, but we were trying to clarify. So the existing governance framework for the RIR follow the ICP-2. Okay, so I will ask them to maybe explain what the ICP-2 is about. But since December last year, ICANN board has approved a document because if you look at the ICP-2, ICP-2 defines how we recognize a new RIR, but does not have a provision. How do we check continuous compliance, and how do we de-recognize? I don't like this thing, but I have to use it, de-recognize the RIR. But I think with the Afrinic situations, then ICANN, the RIR has asked the ASOAC to propose something which has been adopted by the ICANN board while they are working on the ICP-2 version 2. So we will look at that. And, but the objective is learning from the Afrinic crisis and see how we can improve the governance of the RIR, because one thing is to have in place framework rules, but we also need to see how the RIR can comply to that. So, and allow me to set a little bit of the context so that we will all know, because there are also some misunderstanding about the IP addresses. Sometimes people trying to think the rules which apply to the domain name apply to the IP address, and et cetera, et cetera. So we're trying to put a bit of what we call the internet number resources. So Madhvi presented them yesterday, the IP address, the ASN. Okay, so these resources are just numbers, okay, and they have value if we all agree to use them. That is, they are just numbers, okay, and then they have value when we agree to use them, and when we use them, and when others accept to also use them with us. Because if you decide to use them and then the peers not accept, okay, so it will not work. These numbers are finite. That's why yesterday Madhvi mentioned the conservation. So we have to manage them responsibly, not waste them. Okay, so the IP address are used at the IP layers, and the IP address are the only number of information from the end node which we put in a routing table. So the policy and the law around the internet number resources, this ecosystem is supposed to be self-regulated. You hear bottom-up, multi-stakeholders, you hear bottom-up today. It's supposed to be self-regulated. it starts from following the standard defined by IETF, again, another acronym, IETF. Yesterday, you hear about Mr. Steve Crocker talking about the request for comment, okay? And there are two RFC which really will be from interest for people here, RFC 2008 and RFC 2050, which as 2050 has been, I think, obsoleted by 7020, might be 7020. Okay, don't worry, I think it's 7020. ICANN, the RIR through the ASO, AC, all these things, trying to set policy. So ITF say, we give these numbers to IANA, okay? And then you guys go inside ICANN and do your policy things. Then from there, we take it to the regions. Then the region, we take it to countries, and then we take it to the end user. So I want us to understand a little bit this thing, because otherwise we will not understand what the panel is about. And the whole objective is to help this community to understand what is at stake. Because as Krishna said, there are so many misinformation around these things, and sometimes even from good faith, we can create more problem than solving what we were trying to do. So policy are defined in the regions based on rough consensus. Okay? Madhavi mentioned the policy, I think yesterday, the process, okay? And the policy is the bottom up. And sometimes we see some confusion there. Even this morning, I think there was a confusion between the role of the members and the bottom-up side of the things. Okay, so the policy development process must remain bottom-up, but the members have the right. Okay, and so I think there are two separate things we need to look at. There are global policy, there are regional policy. Okay, but for the global policy, what we do is start from the regions, and the global policy must reach consensus in each region before it becomes global policy, and then is submitted to ICANN to be accepted as a global policy. The policy does not have, the policy are not implemented in a national jurisdiction. Now we are now looking at the thing. So when we talk about policy, and then you go country, you find the lawyers, or you find the regulator, sometimes they ask you, where does your policy business fit in our legislation? And where there's a conflict, which one we should apply? The national law or your policy? Yes, there is no specific legislations, no specific jurisdiction. We did not set a court somewhere like, I think, the World Football Association has a tribunal. But we did not have this kind of tribunal to go and settle our dispute there. Okay. We did not have a tribunal like the FIFA has tribunal. We did not have there is a little jurisprudence about how IP address can be handled. This is the reality. And we manage everything through the registration service agreement, through the policies. The initial agreement on managing IP addresses were no lease, need basis. I want to make it clear, I said the initial. It remained the same for us, but it looked like in different regions, the need-based seem to not have the same meaning. But I think for us in Africa, we are still following the no lease and the need base. This also is very important because when we are looking at what is happening in the other regions, we should know the context. And we should know the context. So we are still, the IP address are not owned, not property. There is a big issue there. And I think, to be honest, part of the problem here also has something to do with ownership of IP address. We have to be honest, because now we are in a restoration. We should tell the truth. The agreement says the IP address are not property. They are given to you need-based. If you don't need them, you return them, etc., etc. But there are other opinions saying, I must own the IP address. And IPv4 now have value. At the beginning, we were dealing with resources, public good. Today we hear public good, common good, etc., etc. But today it looks like dollars are in. Dollars are in. And these are the reality we have to understand. Dollar in the, now in the. And the other issue also comes from the exhaustion of IPv4. Okay, so those who are in the business, like Amin will tell you, when the resources now get scarce, then the value increase, then we fight for it. Okay. So IPv4 exhaustion, and currently Afrinix is the only one with IPv4. Okay, so, but to move forward a little bit and trying to accelerate, I will not go to the Afrinix crisis again because we had enough. But before, I want to say something. During the IANA transitions, the global community trying to prepare the ecosystem. In 2015, there was a call for the RIR to run an assessment of the accessibility and the risk of capture. The risk of capture in 2015. And each RIR got a report and was supposed to implement safeguard. And the NRO even trying to put a stability fund in place. So it looked like we were prepared. We seemed to be prepared for something. But the dispute, the Afrinix dispute, seemed to have shown us that maybe our preparations were not strong enough, or maybe we missed some of the signal. So I'm gonna briefly ask the panelists. So do you really were in the impression that what we did in 2016, 2015 to strengthen the RIR system did not work? What did we miss? Did we miss some signal? What is that when Afrinix crisis came, all these things we put in place didn't work? So I would start from Peter Hans, the CEO of the RIR, before I come to you guys. So Hans Peter.
Yeah, so unfortunately, I did not have this job in 2015 and 2016, so I do not know exactly what you are referring to then, so my apologies for that. I think my perspective on this is that the world has changed quite a lot. When I got involved in the community to get IP addresses, the policy in the RIPE region, RIPE NCC still handled the northern part of Africa, said that IP addresses have no intrinsic value and cannot be sold. No, that has changed for many reasons, where we saw, and this was me from the community side, that companies would buy and sell subsidiaries, they would do mergers and acquisitions, and we could try to keep up with those idealistic things, but without a firm, strong, what you could call it, a whip to keep the members, the users in shape. It was much better to make sure that the registry is kept up to date. So it should be easy to make sure that the registry is accurate and kept up to date. And then we also see that legally the world is changing. There are laws that are changing. There are different legal traditions. In the RIPE NCC region, we early on had arbiters, so it's not like the FIFA court that you mentioned, but it's still a low cost, actually free, for members' way to raise a case, a conflict between two members or with the RIPE NCC to an arbiter, and it's the binding ruling for the RIR. In the US, for instance, the default is to take anything to the court, so they don't have an arbitration, right? So there are different cultural perspectives between, you know, Europe and US, and I won't discuss the rest of the world, but you know, that's the way it is. I think from the RIPE NCC, we have learned a lot from what's happened in Afrinic. We have done changes to our articles now over the last couple of years. So in the past, if we had been in the same situation, we would have needed 200 members to call for a new general meeting and elect a new board. Now that would have been possible. It would be a hurdle, but still possible. Now what we did change in the bylaws is that if the board don't have a quorum, the remaining board members always have the authority to call a general meeting to have an election. And if I lose the whole board, I, as managing director, now have the authority to call a general meeting to elect a new board. Now, what we didn't put in place is that what if both the board and I disappear? So there is a limit to how far we've gone, right? We've done quite a number of mitigations here. So I think taking it back to the Stability Fund, which I don't know the exact details because I wasn't around the table then, but when we discussed this, when the Afrinic crisis happened, was that, but this is not a matter of financial support because Afrinic has money, well, except when the bank accounts were frozen, but that was luckily for a short period of time. So it's not that Afrinic needs financial support, it's a governance breakdown, and that was something that nobody had thought about. So that's the difficulty with any system, whether it's a technical system that you build with servers, because you said you wanted to talk technology, or a network, you can't possibly test all things to go wrong. There will always be something that you have to deal with as incident management and you haven't a continuity plan for. And I think maybe we have learned collectively that we have relied a bit too much on being reactive and reacting when things happen, we fix it, rather than doing proper continuity planning and stress testing. One of the things I discussed with my board in the board meeting 3 weeks ago was that the RIPE NCC now needs to put in place an escrow program, so all the registry data will be put in escrow with the third party, and then, for instance, IANA would be the beneficiary if RIPE NCC completely falls over. So that's thinking that we haven't done, but really comes out of the work now on the ICP-2 implementation procedures, but also the new version of RIR governance that is worked on.
Okay, thank you, Peters, and I thank you for saying that. I think the world has learned from the Afrinic crisis. So you look like at least there are positive things. So, and in response to the Afrinic crisis, RIPE NCC, and I'm sure the other RIR has also learned a lesson and adjust. So then to my panelists here, Eve, were you surprised that it happened to Afrinic and the way it went? Were you surprised, or is it something you okay, even with out of ASO, from Orange perspective, were you surprised?
It's interesting, so you say that it was from Orange perspective. So coming back very quickly to the NRONC, so what we are talking about, we are so the representative of the communities of the region. So we will speak, and I think Akinori will speak in that view. We are more from the community perspective. And 2015 is an interesting date for me because from Orange, the very first Afrinic meeting I attended, it was in Tunis in 2015. And that was finally what surprised me when attending a meeting. So there was very interesting discussion about policy development, policy proposal, etc. But there was also the impression to have not a community, but different communities as well. And the impression as I have, but it's a personal impression, and I am not judging anybody, is when part of the community proposed a policy, there was another part of the community proposing another policy different from the one, and it was clearly impossible to converge to something because of that. I said, I spoke about the community, but it could be in another level and another part of this multi-stakeholder governance, when it appears that there could be, what I would say, personal opinion appearing that could be counter the global discussion or a common discussion, finally. And it makes to think that what is the meaning of being part of a community. If you are part of a community, you think about the good of the community in general and not specifically on your specific business. It's the way we try to work globally. So what's a thing? And the other thing is the multi-stakeholder status of the governance. I heard a lot of time, so some part of the community or people blaming other. And I think perhaps the solution is not to say perhaps this guy or this organization or this party or this function at something that is not good for finally the future, but think also that can I personally, or that can I, being part of something, what can I do for finally increasing something or giving a solution? What I said is very general, but that was my impression as part of the community.
Yeah, thank you, Hervé. I remember that meeting in Tunis. Yes, and what you said is true. This what we've been trying to address. So, but Akinori, in AP region, were you surprised to see the attack on Afrinic, and what has happened since in APNIC region?
Right. Thank you very much. What can I say? First of all, I loved the yesterday program to look back the 30 years ago of the Ghanaian internet, and then I love the anecdote that 9.6 kilobps modem. Then that's we are now running the gigabit access line to the internet, for example. That represents how the internet now and then is different, totally different. I remember that we weren't bothered by the spam by 1996. Maybe young people doesn't believe it, right? So that meaning the internet is totally different thing. So in APNIC, we actually had some problem in the election, and then year 2023 election, and then at the time we finally found that in a APNIC region that we need to reinforce our own bylaws at the time. Then we had the big problem that the APNIC membership hardly could revise the bylaws because of the really high requirement of the voting count. So the APNIC community started with changing that bylaws in a very special way. It's a historic way to change the bylaws, and then finally the membership got down to the revision of the bylaws at the time, and then we addressed the problem with the election. That means that to disqualify one candidate who made a violation to the election code of conduct. So that's meaning. So we, until then, we were running the APNIC and we were running the Asia Pacific Internet by the law which was written in 20 or 25 years ago. that rule is not effective now. That's what we learned. So actually, I love the membership effort in APNIC to revise the bylaws. Actually, at that time, quite a big number of the boards got together to change the bylaws. That's membership power. So that kind of thing. So APNIC changed the bylaws, and then I know that the NCC reinforced its own bylaws. So that's the overall process is to have our procedure, process, provisions up to date, and then a modern thing to address today's problem. So that is all about lesson learned for these kind of problems.
Okay, thank you, Akinori. And I think I do remember that one of the changes the APNIC members put in a bylaw seemed to say that any member which is in dispute with APNIC will not run for board election or will not nominate candidate for board elections. So thank you all. So now let's move to compliance to ICP-2 and the other guidelines. So in response to the African crisis, the NROEC has asked the ASOEC to propose an ICP-2 implementation procedure and to strengthen the ICP-2. And so the first request, took us to that ICANN board. So currently there is a procedure for ICANN to address issue with RIR not being in compliance with ICP-2. Then the second request to strengthen the ICP-2 led to the new governance framework, which has been discussed and will be discussed tomorrow after the ICANN day. So I will just ask the ASOAC members here to just elaborate a little bit, but trying to be brief. You confirm that we have now there is a procedure adopted by the ICANN board to implement actions against non-compliant ICP-2, and then can you elaborate on the ICP-2v2, but without going into the detail because tomorrow we'll have a session. So can you really just elaborate on these two, the new framework which I just mentioned?
Yeah, thank you. Just to say first, the ICP-2 and the update of the ICP-2 was not done because of the Afrinic particularly. It was to strengthen the system globally. When it was adopted in 2001, the ICP-2 Internet Coordination Policy 2. They are free, ICP. Sorry for that on the acronyms. The ICP-2, the first one, listed the criteria for the establishment of a regional internet registry. And in 2001, finally, we didn't think that there could be a crisis that make people think of there could be an issue with a regional internet registry and the potential, but very potential idea to to close a regional internet registry. Finally, the document which is not adopted yet is under consultation currently, and you can read it, you can answer, make it that more complete. So it makes it clear that this list of criteria can be used for the establishment of a regional internet registry, but also to audit a regional internet registry in its ongoing life, and in an exceptional case, if the criteria are not met, there could be the possibility to close the regional internet registry. And there is not a complete, but a more detailed process to conduct audits, to have the ICANN to have a specific role in the process as well, to have the possibility of a third party to audit. A lot of things that finally we added, taking into account the inputs of the different communities and your inputs as well, because we presented the different version of the document to the Afrinic community also. So I have to be brief, so I will stop there, but there is a lot to say about.
But Hervé, please, I want you to say something about the ICP-2 implementation procedure. There is a document called ICP-2 implementation procedure, which has been adopted by ICANN board. Okay, right?
So you say about the 2024?
Yes.
Yeah.
It existed. So, so currently, it can be used by the ICANN board to act if in case they feel like there is any serious issue with an RIR. Right? Okay. So, so Akinori, anything to add to the implementation procedure and the ICP-2v2?
Right. For the implementation procedure, it is actually the outside of the mandate of the SOAC. And then maybe if we need to answer to that question, maybe Hans-Peter would be the much better position. Hey, Hans-Peter.
Okay. So Hans, any comment on the ICP-2 implementation procedure? Because yes, it was the NROEC which asked the ASOEC to produce the document.
So it's quite right that we initiated this. And to a large extent, this document was written between the NRO lawyers and the ICANN lawyers. Now the ASOAC reviewed it, but it's not the work of the ASOAC. So I wouldn't blame this one on that. The review of the ICP-2 is the work of the ASOAC with support, of course. So then they're doing the heavy lifting there. The thinking behind the implementation procedures is that when the first 3 RIRs were set up, ICP-2 was not in place, right? So RIPE-NCC, APNIC, and ARIN were established under the principles in the RFCs that you referred to earlier on. So thanks for digging that out. I think that's an important bit of the history to be aware of here. And there was never a firm commitment from all the RIRs that the principles in ICP-2 is something that is not only used to establish new RIRs, because both LACNIC and AFRINIC produced a lot of documentation, sent it to the ICANN board, and eventually got recognized that, you fulfill this criteria. Now, once you have a document saying that this is how you get the driving license, you kind of need to continue to fulfill those criteria. So, when I got older, I need glasses, so I need to go to an optometrist to get the glasses, or I need to get a doctor's certificate for my health when I get even older than what I'm now, in order to still be able to allow to drive a car. If not, my driving license will be taken away. And the thinking here with implementation procedures was really to put that principle on a paper. There should be a commitment from all the RIRs, not only AFRINIC here, but all of them, RIPE-NCC included, that if we do not live up to these principles, there will be consequences, right? Not because I want to use that to the extreme, but there needs to be, the whip, not only the carrot in this system. So that was put together as the first step in this thing that not only established but also ongoing commitment and then de-accreditation. But then we realized we need to update the whole framework, and that's the ongoing work. That's the important work.
Okay, thank you, Peter. So, any questions, comment in the room before we move to the next section of the panel? But because of the time. So Suzanne is not yet here. It means that we still have minimum 10 minutes to go. So questions, comment, contributions.
Hello.
Who are you again?
Yes, my name's again Lawrence Olawale Roberts. At this point, I also want to add that I also wear another hat as a GNSO counselor, representing the business constituency in ICANN. Thank you for giving some insight to ICP-2 and for also mentioning, which I also want to reiterate, that there is an ongoing public comment that is open, for which community members can contribute ideas to improve this process. But looking at the document that we are currently discussing and commenting on, which gives insight to how a new RIR can be recognized or derecognized, there is something that I feel is a missing gap. And I wanted to find out, since you're the experts in this, if there is another document that speaks to how a succeeding or a new recognized RIR gets and manages resources. Because we understand that for the IPs, they are allocated from the IANA pool, and we know that the IANA pool is depleted as it is, especially with regards IPv4. So if there were a succeeding RIR based on this documentation that we are currently commenting on, which definitely will come into play when eventually approved, how would an RRR, for instance, if it were in the African community, get to have a pool of IPv4 resources to be able to allocate to the clients that need them? Is there something else that speaks to this because it's not in this document? Thank you.
This is supposed to be a high-level document setting the principles. There needs to be more detailed implementation guidelines for this as well. And you're quite right that for IPv4, there is no way of solving the question you raised. There are no more addresses, so there will be no blocks allocated to a new RIR. What will happen if, for instance, a large part of the RIPE NCC region breaks out? We've had this experience before. Northern part of Africa was part of the RIPE NCC region, and when we set up Afrinic, then all the resources belonging to the members in that region were transferred to Afrinic from the RIPE NCC registry. So if we know where to see a situation where, let's take an example that Scandinavia wanted to set up a new regional internet registry with Norway, Sweden, Denmark, then all the resources relating to those members would have to be transferred from the RIPE NCC registry into the Nordic region registry. Now, for IPv6, it would be possible for that registry to get a new block from IANA and then happily allocate resources to new members. But for IPv4, Afrinic and to some extent APNIC, because of reclamation, are the only RIRs left that are able to allocate IPv4 to new members. So new entrants in the market in Europe, they can, right now be on the waiting list for 2 years to maybe get to /24, or they would have to go on the open market and buy addresses through transfers.
Okay, so thank you, Lawrence. Tomorrow we'll have a sections dedicated to the ICP-2v2, so then we can discuss this further. But I agree with Peters that I said yesterday, the future is IPv6, right? So if we keep talking v4, but we need v4, okay? But the future is IPv6. So Suzanne, online question. So Prof, allow to take the online question, then we go.
Okay. The question is from Mohammed. The question reads, why was the question of fragmentation, that is the risk identified far away before 2010 in China, Russia, and India, etc., was not addressed in the ICP-2 version? And then a second question.
Could we take one at a time?
Okay, sorry. Why was the question of
fragmentation? No, I heard the question. If it's possible to get Mohammed to clarify which question of fragmentation he's talking about, because there are so many questions regarding fragmentation, so I'm not exactly sure what he is referring to.
Yes, and please, Suzanne, let's not discuss this in these sections, and I don't even think, maybe tomorrow, okay? Tomorrow, during the ICP-2 sections, we can discuss this. I want us to focus on the compliance of the RIR to the framework. So
I go to the next one.
Yes, please.
Why is the ICP-2 version 2 not addressing the rescue plan, the collaboration and support plan for continuity plan rather than the recognition process?
Okay, again, we will allow the Akinori
I
and
believe
Epi.
I believe it actually does. So, but you know, please discuss that more tomorrow. There are two factors of this. The rescue plan or the business continuity plan is a responsibility of each RIR, although there is a mechanism for an emergency registry operator in the new plans, which comes way before a derecognition. So the intent is for that to be taken care of in that document.
There is a specific emergency continuity part, but it's something so we can discuss tomorrow as well.
Okay, so thank you, but let me set or clarify the rule. Hans Peters, because you are wearing the NROEC, I would like the ASOEC people to address some of the questions before you comes in.
Well,
Okay,
it's an interesting dimension here, right? Because some of this, like the business continuity plan, that's an operational issue. That's my responsibility. While the policy side of this is the community and ASO ACIS issue. So yeah.
Okay. So, Prof.
Okay. Thanks very much. I just want to express some appreciation for the RRRs transferring members from their regions to Afrinic when we started. Because without that, we could not really have started. So I need to say it publicly when we are discussing such difficult subjects. My question is to develop some more understanding of why our community is split, like was referred to by Herb. And I kind of think it has something to do with IP has no value, IP could be sold, and therefore it got value. But then my worry and question is, if IP has value now, who should hold that value? Why is it not me, the ordinary end user, but the one who uses my information to go and get the allocation from upstream? So I have a feeling we did not capture properly certain things about who really is using the thing, and we simply focused on the one that we were interfacing with. And that's generated different perspectives within the community, you know, because there were some who were saying that, hey, as an end user, I should have some say. And others were busy saying that I'm the operator. And so naturally that divided us. I want to know whether is the feeling you are also getting, or I'm a bit gray now.
Yeah, so thank you, Prof. And I think then, let me call Peters on this thing, because before I come to the ASO, because this has something to do with managing and has something to do with the registration service. So Peters, is it something in the right regions or globally saying that if the IP has value, who should own that value? The RIR, the allier, or the end users, or how do we share that value?
It's very difficult to answer this question without getting political. Because you said earlier on, these are resources that is a common good, right? It's a number. You cannot possibly own a number. I want to own 42. It's a very nice number, right? It's the meaning of the universe, life, and everything. But what can I use 42 for? You use 42 for something in your counting, numbering your drawers or whatever. I can't possibly own a number. What we have in the system is a right to registration in a registry. So there is a private sector contractual right for this. Should the system have been so that when you didn't need a resource, you should return it? Well, this is the way it was. That's what I grew up with. This is, where my heart is. This is a common good, so if I don't need it anymore, I would hand it back. I did that with domain names for the first 2 ISPs I set up. I was, you would say today, dumb enough to hand back 2 very nice domain names for Norwegian ISPs, and they were taken over by other companies later on. I have not registered IP addresses myself early days. I should have, and I would have been rich, right? I did that work for the companies that have been acquired, and that's, you know, something they use in their network. I don't see it as a property. No, it has a value for them to run the network. Does it have a value for the end user? Well, yes, but only as part of the service. So if you get, you know, one IP address, you can't really take that to the next ISP. That's what we have domain names for. And domain names are much, you know, a bit different, and you have the intellectual property dimensions and all that, so that's a completely different kind of worms. But I believe that the notion of number portability that you see in mobile networks, the equivalent here is really domain names for that. So the IP number should really be invisible for the end users, and it should be a value shared between the LIRs and the RIRs. If you ask me to point in one way or another, you would ask me to choose between capitalism and socialism, right? So that's kind of, I think, where a lot of the controversy is. The world is today, fortunately or unfortunately, very driven by capitalism and not by shared community value. And we need to find the right balance there.
Thank you, Peter. And just to, before we move on, like, because we are in a restoration mode, I think these discussions in our regions is still on. And people are saying, if IP, especially V4, has a value, why can't we as a community decide that Afrinic stop allocating and get the value from the pool, which he has? So it's also part of the discussion. So, Madhvi, don't worry. We are putting everything on the table. We want to clear the air. So because this is a topic, yeah, we've heard before. If V4 has a value, why can't Afrinic just say, no, we stop allocating? Maybe we Afrinic go to the market and run some auction on the IP address and make billion of it and deploy IPv6 in Africa and build network everywhere. So this is on the table, but no decision has not been made. But I want us to know that this thing is being discussed. Okay. So yes, we will wrap up. We will soon wrap up. But then before I come back to my panelists again for ICP-2, etc., I want to go back to Peter's again. Peter, sorry, I've been harassing you. Okay. So with this new framework coming up, okay, in just briefly, what will it take for an RIR to comply to this?
Could you repeat that?
With the new framework coming up now, okay, what will it take for the RIR to comply to this and avoid the derecognition, because we don't want to see derecognition?
There is an impact assessment being worked on right now. I haven't seen the final version of that, so if I'd had that, you know, I could say, please read here and you will see that. I think the biggest thing for the RIPE NCC is the escrow of data, which we've then started to look into. That will cost time and money, hopefully not too much, but it's an important thing. Whether and for GTLDs, we already have that mechanism in place by a contractual requirement by ICANN. So it's not a new concept. It's a bit more complicated for RIRs because we don't necessarily have the same backend systems and data formats, but that's all technical details there. There, of course, as for any certification, I'm, as you may know, I'm located in Amsterdam, which is in the Netherlands and part of the European Union. The European Union wants to have be the world's best on making regulations, so they're making a lot of new regulations these days. That's causing us a lot of implementing control systems and audits and so on, and of course that costs time and money. Now, any new requirements in the RIR governance systems will similarly cause us to need control system checks and balances and external audits, every 2 years, every 5 years, whatever the conclusion is in the document, where we hire somebody professionally, big audit firm or other neutral experts to come in and check, does the RIPE NCC, does ARIN, does APNIC, does LACNIC, does AFRINIC have this in order? Do they fulfill these principles? And that is going to cost us time and money. But I think it's important because the internet relies on us and the society relies on internet. So in that big scheme, it's really not going to be that expensive.
Okay, so yeah, thank you, Peter. I think the message is clearer that we will have some work. We will see. Yes, we will have work to do to compliance to the new regulations. So it means that we should prepare for a long journey. But we will be happy, as usual, to learn from the other RIRs. So you mentioned document. So yes, I can only.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, Hans-Peter almost covered almost all things for the implementation in RIR. And then I'd like to share with you about, in case of the APNIC, which has the National Internet Registry System. National Internet Registry is handled as the sub-regional registries in the ICP-2v2 draft version 2. And then that basically says that the regional internet registry must be responsible for the entirety of the operational quality of the RIR, including the sub-regional registries. So what we are doing is that means the NIR. I am the JPNIC. JPNIC is the NIR for the Japan. And then NIR need to be compliant to the ICP-2 operational criteria. So, and that means the NIR need to go through the audit process as well as the RIR. So that actually involve a lot of implementation work. Then actually this month earlier we had the APNIC 60 meeting in the Da Nang, and then there was held NIR CEO roundtable, and the Director General Jaron Low invited all NIR C-suite. I was there, and then to ask us to do that together, kind of thing. So that's a long journey. Okay. And then now the ICP-2 the draft version 2 stipulates that after the ICP-2 version 2 is in effect, then implementation must be done in 3 years. So it is a little bit heavy lifting for us, but we will be doing that.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Akinori. So Akinori was talking about the national internet registries. We have them in EPNIC regions and in the LACNIC regions. So thank you, EPNIC. So just to wrap up, Eve, as the chair of the ASOAC, so briefly, how are things going with the ICP-2v2? So briefly.
So about the regional internet registry. I think that for regional internet registry, we don't add any additional function to the regional internet registry. But one thing, but it makes finally so the importance to be compliant and to be for regional internet registry to always be in a situation to be audited. So to have to think about KPIs, to think about something in the way to answer very clearly and very quickly on the question that can be asked to that. But finally, I would say it will ease, in a certain way, the regional internet registry to fulfill its function by having always this situation to, one more time, to be audited.
Okay, so thank you. Tomorrow at 5:30, we'll have 1-hour sessions on ICP-2v2, and please, as you've seen, this is a very important topic for us. So I would like you to join us tomorrow. Then we can have this discussion. So I don't want us to complain later that we were not part, we did not have chance. If we don't contribute, it will apply to us. And we just heard that the implementation of the new rules will cost energy, will cost effort. And I want us all to be aware that we will not be blaming board by trying to do something we do not understand. So please, thank you, the panelists. I don't know if anyone has any last thing to say.
I have one last comment to say, and that since that you're all gathered there now, and there are some Afrinic board members in the room, I heard, please talk to them about how you can appoint somebody to be on the ASO/AC from the Afrinic region, right?
Okay.
The easy one is for the board to just appoint one board-appointed person. That's within your procedures. The community process is maybe a bit longer. I don't know the details, but since a large part of the community is collected, let's see if you can even just reappoint the last ones, right? I think that would be my call to action for you there. And then enjoy your time in Ghana.
Very quickly, so of course, I totally support what Hans-Peter said about first the executive board to appoint somebody to be part of the NRO-NC and to have somebody from the Afrinic is very, very important. And as we will meet in November to analyze the result on the outputs of the current situation, I don't know if it will be possible. If we have somebody from the Afrinic be part of the council when analyzing the result, it will be a very good thing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sometimes I hear oh, that's not no, that is not my problem from the community member. And then no, it is your problem because you are the member of Afrinic. Then membership is actually the Afrinic itself, and then the membership have the board to manage the secretariat, and then Afrinic operates. So you are the Afrinic, and you need to take care of the ICP-2v2 process. That's from me. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. And then I think a round of applause for. So I think the Afrinic board member in the room got the message, and they will do the needful. Thank you very, very much.